From blueprints to booming businesses, from groundbreaking to grand openings, this is Beyond the Blueprint. Join host Brad Howard as he takes you behind the scenes of growth and development in Mooresville, Lake Norman, and beyond. We're talking with the decision makers, the planners, the visionaries shaping our communities, giving exclusive insight into what happens before, during, and after projects that define our region. The future is being built right now. Let's go beyond the blueprint.
Good Friday afternoon. Thank you to those tuning in on the radio at 105.9 FM, 100.7 FM, 1400 AM, on social media, on WSSEnews.com, and on demand with the WSSE News app. This is Beyond the Blueprint, and I'm your host, Brad Howard. On this show, we usually talk about the projects, the deals, and the people shaping growth around Lake Norman. But today, we're discussing something a little more personal, but just as real for high performers in our community, our relationship with alcohol and addiction. If you're a business owner, executive, parent, or professional who's ever wondered quietly, is it starting to be too much? This hour's for you. My guest is local entrepreneur and certified alcohol-free living coach, Nikki Rigby, founder of Get Real with Addiction and Get Real with Alcohol. Nikki built and led multiple seven-figure businesses, hit a point where something had to change, and now uses a science-backed, emotion-based approach to help people rewrite their story with alcohol and addiction without shame, labels, or rock-bottom moments. We'll explore Nikki's journey, why some traditional recovery paths don't work for everyone, what effective liminal psychology is in plain English, and how she's working to change the conversation around Lake Norman. Stay with us. This might be the most important blueprint we talk about all year. Let's dive in. Before we get into the science and the work of what you're doing, we want to meet the person behind it. For listeners meeting you for the first time, who is Nikki Rigby?
Hi, Brad. Thank you for having me on the show. And I am a effective liminal psychology coach, just like you described, which I help people that want to change their relationship with alcohol or any other extreme habit they might have.
Okay, and what is liminal psychology?
Yeah. So affective liminal psychology works with the emotions that drive the behavior. The liminal refers to the space that lies between our conscious and our unconscious. So when it comes to our behaviors, our emotions are what drive our behaviors. You probably have heard the quote, the one and only reason anyone does anything is because they feel like it.
Right. So, so when you say get real with alcohol, get real with addiction, what does that mean, and how do you help everyone?
Yeah. So get real with addiction or with alcohol is diving into our thoughts and our beliefs that are around the substance. Also, our thoughts and our beliefs around ourself and what society's beliefs are around the substance. So when we take all that into consideration and we discover that a lot of the beliefs that we have are limiting, they're not true, and how we can turn those around, we can explore an incredible option that might not have been apparent to us while we were in our extreme habit.
Okay. You built and led a lot of businesses. I've known you a long time, and so walk us through the journey of how you got here.
Yeah. So I actually experienced about 7 years with my addiction. I was addicted to alcohol. And you may have heard me refer to addiction as an extreme habit. And we'll talk more about the science and why I want to bring more of this knowledge and information to a wider, greater mass of people. But for me, I had tried to be a, quote, normal drinker. And
what is a normal drinker?
right. So a normal drinker is what our society refers to as somebody that can drink normal. And what that really implies is what the average person drinks. But we've come to learn that there are so many, it's a spectrum when it comes to drinking. There are so many people on different levels of drinking. But so because people have this impression that you have to be able to drink normal, a lot of people feel the stigma and hence they don't get help. So I finally got to the place where I realized I needed to get help and therefore entered into a traditional treatment, rehab, as we all call it. And within a couple months of being in there, discovered a book that someone referred me to, and that changed my world completely. And we'll get into more of that, I'm sure.
So how did you realize that there you had an issue? I mean, how that something wasn't right?
Yeah,
When was that moment of reflection? Because I know with a lot of people, until they're willing to recognize they have a problem,
right.
it's not going to work.
Oh, and for, years I kept saying, okay, I can manage this. I can learn how to drink normal. And what that looked like is, oh, okay, so tonight I'm gonna, during the week I'm not gonna drink. I'll only drink on weekends, or I'll only drink when I go out, and I'll limit myself to 2 to 3 drinks. Well, as we know, that can create a lot of energy and a lot of stress, and it really wasn't paying off because the more I focused on not focusing on it, I became more focused on it. So,
So to take the I guess to take the discussion where we're going to head from here is, so you realized that you were not a normal drinker at that point.
yeah.
What happened next?
Yeah. So for me, it became problematic. So, problematic drinking can have different, um, it can look differently for everyone. But for me, it was affecting my relationships. It was affecting my work. It was affecting my health. And so from there, it got to the point where it became an extreme habit. And my brain literally knew or thought it needed it to survive. So it became an extreme habit. So from there, I started to, again, I had to do some research. I had to figure out, I had tried a lot of different things. I tried naltrexone, which is a pill that you can take to lessen the effects. And, I tried the abstaining or moderating, all of that. But then when I entered into the traditional treatment center, I started to see that there were some benefits to my options that I hadn't seen when I was in my problematic drinking phase. And then, like I said, when I found the book, This Naked Mind, which really changed everything for me, because I started to realize that I wasn't alone, I wasn't broken, and that this happens actually to a lot of people.
And on that note, if someone listening is thinking, I don't have a problem, what would you say to that?
Yeah. So there's always experiments that you can try to see what that actually looks like for you. So, in other words, take 30 days off and see what happens, see how you feel, see what the benefits are. And then you can go back to say, discovering what alcohol does when you go back to it.
And we're going to take a break. Yeah, no, we're going to take a break and we will be right back. We're going to talk more about Nikki and her background. And next, we're going to talk about traditional treatment and the gaps there. So we'll be right back. It's Beyond the Blueprint with Nikki Rigby. And we are talking about alcohol and addiction. Thank you. Welcome back to Beyond the Blueprint, and today we are with coach and entrepreneur Nikki Rigby talking about changing relationships with alcohol and working through issues with addiction. Before the break, Nikki shared her personal journey, and now we're going to discuss what she's discovered and how she moved forward after looking for help and how it made her to the person she is today. Nikki, when did you first realize that something needed to change, and what were the options on the table?
Yeah. So for me, it had been a long journey where I had trial and error, as we say. And there was one point where I had, the the definition of insanity, where I realized that, and we'll come back to this too, because this is an important moment, but I had, realized that if I were to put another drop of alcohol into my body, I kept ending up in the same spot over and over again. So the options were I could go to AA, which I had already tried that once, and it didn't resonate with me at all. And so then I looked at some different rehabs. I actually was at that time seeing a therapist who specialized in addiction. And that wasn't really helping me. So I did get into a traditional style treatment center. And the other thing that I mentioned about the book, when the book came into play, what I had started to recognize was that the treatment center's approach was a really good approach as far as bringing you some education, bringing you some tools, but there was still that heavy layer of gloom and doom. You had a chronic brain disease, and you were going to have to live with this for the rest of your life. When I was referred to the book, that opened up a whole new world. And as I started to binge read more books and understand that there was all this information that wasn't being delivered to us, that's when the doors started to really swing open.
Okay. And you mentioned AA, rehab, and other traditional paths. Describe for the listeners what are the differences, because I don't personally I don't know, but so when you say AA, those are in my mind, they're group settings. You're talking.
Yes, and they're based on the 12 steps,
Okay.
which AA has helped millions of people. What is hard, though, is that we don't acknowledge the millions of people that it doesn't help, because there's a lot of people that don't, like I said, they don't connect with that 12-step approach. And it's also a 90-year-old program. It's
Right.
not so, and it hasn't been changed or updated. So unfortunately, we have a lot of modern research that's not being utilized. Same thing goes for the treatment centers. We have an efficacy rating of 2 to 4% with treatment centers.
And what does that mean?
So that means that 2 to 4% of people are successful with breaking their habit or their overcoming their addiction.
Wow, that's a very low number.
It's a very low number. So with this methodology that I'm bringing, we have a 54% efficacy rating.
Wow.
So you can see the huge gap.
And we're going to get into talking about this program and how it works
Yes.
later, right? Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good. So you said that the traditional models are life-saving for some, but they don't fully resonate for you. When you were going through this, what felt off as you went through the program?
Yeah. So like I talked about the gloom and doom part of it, you go in there, you don't want anybody to know you're there. I mean, I didn't. Well, even when my mother shared it with a friend, I was so upset with her,
Gosh.
like, oh my God, I can't believe you told somebody, but when I was in there, I started to have my own natural epiphanies where I started to realize, hey, wait a minute, maybe we've got the golden ticket. We don't wake up with hangovers anymore. I feel better. I have clarity, so I started to naturally start to see some of the options or the benefits of the options. But over time, I started to recognize when I did find the other methodology that there was a day and night difference between the people going through the treatment center, because they were still stuck in that shame, that gloom and doom, and when you have that shame, you can't move to the growth stage that you want to move to, because that's why you relapse, because you're feeling shame that you think you're broken and you can't fix yourself and you're not normal.
So how did that curiosity lead you to this science-based, emotion-focused approach, which I still can't say the word. But,
affective. Yeah.
affective.
Yeah. So Annie Grace is the founder, and she has a online platform that has been helping people for over a decade now. And this methodology, like I said, has a higher efficacy rating, and it's also based on all kinds of research and data that shows that a more positive atmosphere, a more positive approach, and helping with the shame and having a more compassion-based approach really helps a person overcome the cycle of addiction. It's incredible because, like, for example, one of the things we use instead of relapse, our terminology is different. We say that you've had data points. So instead of saying that you've failed, we look at it as a learning experience where you can grow from it. Like, what was I feeling when I decided that I wanted to drink? What was triggering me? Did it actually give me what I thought it was going to give me? So when you explore and get curious, that's where you can change the habit and have a longer sustaining change when you're looking at what's driving it.
Okay, to help, I'm a visual person. I know we're on the radio. This is not a visual thing, but to help us walk us through the process. If say you're the person and you've hit rock bottom, walk us through your program and what steps are next. I call you. I say, Nikki, I hit rock bottom. Go from there.
Sure. I do want to comment on the rock bottom. The great news about rock bottom is that right now there's a big awareness. The younger generations aren't drinking as much. You're seeing more NA beers, NA wines, and mocktails because there is this more awareness around that alcohol doesn't give us what we thought it gave us. So there is also the concept of gray area drinking. You don't have to have that rock bottom to want to make a healthier choice. You know, when we think about alcohol and we look at the science, it doesn't help you sleep. It
actually keeps you awake.
Yeah, so it'll help you fall asleep faster because it's an anesthetic, but it's also a depressant. So the next day you end up more depressed and you wake up in the middle of the night because your body's trying to get homeostasis. So there's all kinds of science behind it when we look at what we thought it gave us. But so when you decide that, hey, I want to change my relationship with whatever it is, whether it be alcohol or any other substance or even a behavior you want to change, I have a 12-week program, and you can call and have a 30-minute free Q&A first call where you can ask me questions, see what it looks like. And then we have a 1-hour coaching session each week for the 12 weeks. And I help provide you with the tools, the tactics, and the education and awareness around what is holding you back and creating that extreme habit that you want to change.
Okay, so how? So say somebody's listening and they may or may not have a problem. Maybe they're a family member of someone who they think has a problem. How do they start that conversation? How do they start the dialogue to maybe want them to reach out to you or want to reach out to you?
Yeah, so they can reach out to me still through that 30-minute Q&A call that I offer. On our website, you can find that. You can go to getrealwithalcohol.com and getrealwithaddiction.org. Either one will take you there. But that call, what we'll discuss is there are partners that I have that do family counseling and help you to have those questions that bring curiosity to help work with a loved one that will help bring them to a better place as far as just telling them, hey, get it together. You have a problem. There are much better ways to help someone that might be struggling or have problematic drinking or any kind of addiction.
Okay, so if you think you or you have a family member or a friend that may go to one of the two websites, reach out to you. You'll schedule the time. You'll talk with them, and just help them, try to figure out that how to get it together. But you're going to reassure them that there's nothing wrong. Everything in life is difficult at times. So how does it go from that? What is the next step? So someone has the courage, they do that, they have the meeting with you, and then it's a weekly program, and then you're holding them accountable.
Yes. Yeah. So a lot of it has to do with helping the person understand, one of the biggest questions that people want to know when this happens to them is, why did it happen to me? What is wrong with me? So this is one of the things that I'm actually working with treatment centers to bring this methodology to them because of the efficacy ratings and also because the approach is in a much more positive light. So if we really want to end the stigmas, we have to give the right education and background to why this is happening. So we used to think that it was a chronic brain disease because we saw changes in the brain when we looked at the brain scan. But modern research shows that those changes in the brain are actually the same changes that happen when you fall in love, the same thing that happens with musicians, with athletes. So what it is it's a learned behavior. Now, what I mean by that is that we, with our thoughts, our beliefs, with our experiences over time, and then maybe we have something happen, a loss of some sort, then we use coping mechanisms. We create these habits that start with an impulse, then become compulsive, and then can become an extreme habit. So that's what the learned behavior part is. It's what we've been conditioned or how we've created habits to lead us to depend on that substance or that behavior.
Okay. And we're going to have to take a quick break, but we'll come back and we're going to bring this home to Lake Norman and talk about how alcohol shows up in high-performing communities, affluent communities, and how Nikki's work with Get Real with Addiction and Get Real with Alcohol and local organizations are going to continue changing the conversation. So stay with us and we will be right back. And we're back on Beyond the Blueprint. We're with Nikki Rigby, and we are talking about addiction and alcohol with her and her company, Get Real with Alcohol and Get Real with Addiction. We want to continue the discussion here about how alcohol shows up in affluent, high-performing communities as well. And wanted you to know if you could just give us some examples of what you see out there. No specifics, but help us understand, what folks are going through.
Yeah, sure. One of the myths that I want to mention too on this subject is that we think that people that have drinking problems are on the lower rung of society. And in fact, a lot of high influential people, doctors, attorneys, they can fall into addiction just as much as anyone else. And as I was saying, it's a spectrum, and it can happen to anyone. There's no one identified gene that you have that says that you're going to have an addiction. So, when I was actually in the treatment center and finished, they ask you to come back as a change agent and tell your story, a 20-minute story to the people that are going through it, just to make them feel comfortable and help them in their journey. And there was always another person. So there would be myself and another person that would come in and tell our stories. And I had already been through the other methodology. And so when I would go back and talk, my story was day and night compared to the other person that had just gone through the treatment center. And that's because they were still white knuckling it. They were still desiring to drink. They hadn't reached, like what I say is that true freedom, where I had, and neuroplasticity is a big part of this methodology, where you rewire your brain. So in other words, you start in the subconscious place where you're asleep, you don't know you have a problem. Then you move to aware, where, okay, now I'm aware that I have a problem. And you move to the awake stage, where now you're trying to collect tools and fix it. But that's where the treatment centers leave you, in that third stage, where you're still in the conscious part. But we bring it back to your subconscious, where now you don't have to even think about it. So, for example, I have a full bar in my lower level of my house. I have a walk-in wine room. I serve wine to my mother when she comes over. My husband still drinks, and I have no desire, and I don't white knuckle it. I am truly have rewired to the point where I don't have to think about it anymore. It's small and irrelevant, and it doesn't exist in my life. And I'm living a thriving, flourishing life.
Okay. And we were talking in the break. Give some examples, and don't use any specific names or anything like that, but help people understand some real world examples of situations and issues that folks have had. And and how using your method, you help them overcome that.
Yeah. Yes. So, I have many one-on-one clients, and then I also work with treatment centers doing their group sessions. So I see a lot of different situations, and the methodology that I'm bringing to them. One of the things that it does, again, is it helps them to remove the stigmas. We don't work with labels. We don't even use the word alcoholic. That's an old term that quote,
Right, right.
So we say problematic drinking, or, you have an addiction to alcohol. So working with some of the clients, for example, one of my clients just recently, her husband was having some chest pains, and actually was supposed to be going in on Wednesday for a catheterization. And because she wasn't drinking and the clarity that she had, she ended up bringing him earlier over the weekend. And so looking back at that, she was realizing that had she had still been drinking, she probably would have blew it off. And she wouldn't have brought her husband when he was having the chest pains, because she knew he
Oh my
was
gosh.
having a catheterization.
Right. Right.
So it was a big aha moment for her. She also, feels great in the sense that, she has people telling her, wow, you've lost weight. You look so much younger. And that's because, we don't realize the weight that we gain from just drinking, the calories that are involved. She feels better. She has more energy. She's sleeping better. We talked over the break that one glass of alcohol actually ruins your sleep for 3 nights, because it reduces your REM sleep, which is the most important part of our sleep. And so we just, we've been conditioned to think, with all the billion-dollar advertisements that are out there, that alcohol provides, relief and helps us, with staying calm and our stress, and it actually increases it, and it ruins our sleep. So there's just so much information that we're misled on.
Right. And we're obviously in the Lake Norman region here, and obviously anyone who lives around Lake Norman knows that there is alcohol and substances everywhere. I mean, especially on the lake, on the water, when you're boating. Um, how does alcohol show up in the community where people are successful with busy, socially active lives? What patterns What patterns have you seen, or do you start seeing at kids' events, golf courses, business dinners? Where do the flags start to show up when folks need to understand they might need to think about what's going on?
Yeah. So when you're finding yourself that you're focused more on drinking than going and enjoying the event that you're actually participating in, that's when you might want to take a step back and say, hey, maybe I need to take a break and just see how I feel. When we start to think about, oh, when's the next time I get to drink? Or, oh, we're going to that event. I want to make sure, like if you're going to a musical, are you thinking about, oh, I got to make sure I get my drink before I go in? And then when we're on, intermission, I got to go get that drink. If drinking is becoming more of a focus, that's where you want to, and there, like I mentioned earlier, gray area drinking. You don't have to hit rock bottom. And it can just be something that's just not serving you well. And that's what the awareness is around it today.
Okay. And on that same note, so what conversations are happening on social media, or what stories are people telling you privately that they wouldn't say publicly? Help us understand, because we really want to reach out to folks that may need help, or may think that they're okay, and especially going into the holiday season. That's why we want to have this conversation now, before all this comes up, so people can realize if they do have an issue, look,
Yeah.
it needs to address it.
It's a great question. The first thing that I want to help people understand is that there are over 160 plus identified addictions. So when we think of, and there's over 50% of Americans that have an addiction. So when we think that if we might have an addiction, whether it be a slight addiction or an extreme, or a habit, let's just call it a habit. or if we have an extreme habit with alcohol, you're not alone, and there's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. Your mind's actually doing exactly what it's been designed to do. So when it comes to just getting curious about what your relationship is with alcohol is the first step. Just starting to notice when you're drinking, is it really giving you what you think it's giving you? When I was drinking, I wasn't aware of how crappy I felt. It wasn't until I stopped and I looked back.
When you're not feeling crappy, then yeah. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and that's the most common thing I hear when you have people that have gone alcohol free, is that they say, "Oh my God, I don't know how I was surviving when I was drinking, because I didn't notice how bad I felt because that was the norm."
So how do these stories help the way that you show up? How do you, personalize the one-on-one coaching experience based on the real life issues that person is experiencing?
Yeah, so that's what's great about the one-on-ones, is that we can tailor the program to where the person's at. So instead of a one size fits all, this meets the person where they're at and what their needs are, and we can help them through their journey to feel more confident about exploring and being curious.
So if I'm listening and I'm interested, you have the empathy to say, I can walk through the door with you.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah, it's very relatable.
Very relatable. All right. And on that, we're going to take a break, and we will be right back with Nikki Rigby. And we're back on Beyond the Blueprint with Coach Nikki Rigby of Get Real with Alcohol and Get Real with Addiction. So, Nikki, what does your coaching offer in practical terms? One-on-one, groups, online, in person? Can you explain more on that?
Yes. I actually offer the one-on-one, like we were mentioning earlier, where you'll have 1 hour coaching session each week for a 12-week. And then we have next step programs that follow that as well, depending on where you are at the end of the 12 weeks. And I also have what I call Zoominars.
Zoominars.
Yeah, they're campfire conversations, and they're a 90-minute, and we focus on topics. And you can join into those groups. And like, for example, one of them is coming out. So a big problem for a lot of people that do have, issues around drinking is, how do you tell people that you've stopped drinking? And so that's a big helpful conversation that we can dive into. How do you handle that? And so,
how do you handle that?
Yeah. So, when we think about telling somebody that we're not drinking anymore, we're making these stories in our head as to what the other people are going to think. So when we focus more on how we feel about it, as opposed to what the other people might be thinking. So for example, if I walk up to somebody and say, "Oh, yeah, I don't drink anymore," you're kind of meek and quiet. But what if you go up to somebody and say, "Oh yeah, I stopped drinking"? The positivity.
I like the way I feel when I don't drink.
Exactly. Own it, be confident, because here's the thing, there's thousands of reasons why people don't drink or why they've stopped drinking. It doesn't have to, we make it to mean that, oh, people are going to think something's wrong with me. But actually, most people admire people for quitting drinking because you're going against the norm. Mm-hmm. So, that's one of the things that we talk about in that kind of conversations, is to help people change the way they perceive and their
right
perspective.
So instead of making it a negative, you turn it into a positive.
Yes.
Right. So when you're talking with someone, how do you decide if they're better served by a one-on-one, going to therapy, rehab, or some higher level of care possibly?
Yeah, so we'll go through a set of questions where I can get to know the person better and see, if they're a good fit for the program, or if they're at a level that needs a different kind of attention. So those questions will help me to help them to make sure that they're in the right place.
Okay. Uh, talk about your involvement in local organizations. How are you engaging with them, and how are they shifting the culture?
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the big areas that I've addressed is that I'm bringing a program to treatment centers, this program, because, there is a gap between the old school of thought and the modern research. And the biggest thing is that we have all this great information and all this knowledge around how to help someone with any kind of extreme habit or addiction. And one of the biggest parts of that is the positive approach. We used to think, oh, positivity is, foo-foo or
Right.
woo-woo, right? But there's so much science out there now that the more positive someone feels about something, the more likely they are to succeed.
Mhm.
So, one, by helping them remove the shame and to help them understand the science that they're not broken. And then two, moving to a place of the education and understanding the science. But then also helping them to get curious. And, we do an alive goal. So, how do you want to feel
Mhm.
with your, changing your relationship? And so, when you focus on how you want to feel, we can zero in on the positive parts and look for the benefits.
And for someone listening today who's worried about their relationship with any type of addiction, what's the best first step?
Yeah. So, the first best step is one, to reach out to someone,
And don't be ashamed.
yeah, you can have these conversations just with anyone, and like you're saying, don't feel ashamed, because what I've learned, through my journey, I can't imagine, I couldn't imagine this before, is how many people have a story of their own to share. When you become vulnerable and you share your story, you'll automatically hear stories back that you would have never imagined hearing.
So for the person riding around in the car right now thinking, hey, she's talking about me, what do you say to them?
You're not alone. You're not alone.
That's a very good point.
Yeah.
Um, so where can people go today if they want to read, listen, and reflect on what we're talking about?
Yeah. So I would highly recommend picking up the book, This Naked Mind.
This Naked Mind.
Yes. This Naked Mind. You can get it at Amazon, Barnes and Nobles. It's anywhere that they sell books. There's also her community online. That's thisnakedmind.com that you can check out. She has an app. I'm saying Annie Grace is the founder and the person behind this methodology. And the community in the app is wonderful because you can quickly see that there are a lot of people that are looking for the same thing. They're looking for freedom. They're looking for a life that is more flourishing and thriving. And it's just helpful to know that there are other people in the same situation, in the same boat. And the other thing that's on that website is they're about to launch one in January, and I'm one of the coaches for that, is the live alcohol experiment.
What is this?
So this is fun because you can join in with lots of other people that are joining it. I forget what the actual number is. It's really high. How many live alcohol experiments that they've run, and how many people? It is over 500,000 people that have done these experiments.
Go into more detail. I want to know what a live alcohol experiment is.
Yeah. So it's a 30-day program that you join, and you'll get video feeds each day for the 30 days. And during that time, once a week, you'll have a live where the coaches come on live in the program, and they'll talk about a certain point or topic around becoming alcohol free. And then there's a VIP program that you can sign up for, and then you get an hour coaching each week. So what's really neat is like I said, it takes you through what we call the 3 S's. That's the beliefs and thoughts around yourself, around the substance, and then around society's beliefs around the substance.
You've made a huge impact already. look into your crystal ball, look forward 5 years, get real with addiction, get real with alcohol. What does success look like for you? What impact do you want to feel that you've made when you look back 5 years from now?
Oh, so that's a good one for me. Thank you for asking that question because I am very passionate about changing the narrative around addiction. The whole reason people don't get help is because of our stigmas that are associated with it. And it's unfortunate because, as you've heard me discuss throughout this, is that it's not something we should be ashamed of because our brain is actually doing what it's designed to do. And so if we could all understand the science and stop using labels and be able to be more compassionate and help get curious around it, we could help a lot of people break free from addiction.
And how do you get the message out? I mean, I know you're on the radio show right now, but what other ways are you getting your message out there? And are you actively trying to reach people? And how can we help you reach more people?
Yeah, so I'm actually in the process of writing a book. So I'll be releasing
tell us about the book.
Yeah, so the book is actually going to address how our treatment centers are actually addicted to an old school of thought. And, over 10 years ago, we had all this new research and understanding around addiction, but yet it hasn't been able to funnel out to the mass population. And so the book is really about unfolding how we are in that addiction mode of the old school of thought, and also how I'm also giving a solution at the same time. At the end of the book, you'll hear more about this approach and how we can take what we've learned and apply it.
Okay. And on that, to continue, would you say, or what is the most successful client story? And again, no names, when you're down personally and you can look back and say, I helped XYZ with this. What would one of those examples be?
Yeah. So or actually, I shouldn't say just one of my clients. This happens with several of my clients, where they have gotten into the extreme portion. When I say extreme addiction, that means that they're waking up and they're reaching for alcohol. They're drinking around the clock, and they're hiding it, and they're not able to stop drinking. And the reason they're hiding it is because, of course, our society. Yeah. And, they don't want their loved ones to know. So when I can see those individuals get to the point where now they're waking up, they're not thinking about alcohol at all. They go through an entire day, week, month, and they haven't thought once about having a drink, and they don't miss it. Those are the success stories that I love talking about.
And then, that has to make you feel exceptional, just to know that you played a part in helping them change their life.
Absolutely.
So Nikki, thank you so much for being so open. Thank you for the work that you're doing here in the Lake Norman area. And to listeners who want to learn more, you can go find Nikki at Get Real with Alcohol or Get Real with Addiction online and on social media. And we'll share the links as well in the Facebook post and the social media post. And if you or someone you know is struggling, please reach out to a trusted professional or a local research. Remember, you do not have to navigate any of this alone. Again, thank you again, Nikki. This is Beyond the Blueprint. I'm Brad Howard, and we will see you next week.